In the future, species have conquered the universe with giant spacecraft, along with powerful armies and weapons that can destroy any planet in galaxies. Besides, there is a supernatural ability called the Force, with the power to control everything, used by the Jedi, the most powerful people in the universe. The galaxy was ruled by the law and was managed by a planetary alliance called the Senate and its Supreme Chancellor. Currently, on the planet Naboo, ambassadors from the Senate visited the warship of the Trade Federation. Those two ambassadors were Jedi. One was the teacher named Qui-Gon, and his student named Obi-Wan got off the transport to negotiate. In the control room, people who were scared, like the viceroy of the Trade Federation named Gunray, were seeking to buy time to contact the person behind everything, who claimed to be Lord Sidious. Powerful people like Gunray also had to be afraid of him. It turns out that Lord Sidious wanted to take this planet. Eventually, he ordered the killing of the two Jedi to prevent them from revealing everything. Just a few minutes later on the landing pad, the Jedi's ship exploded, and the crew on the transport could not turn back and had also left. Qui-Gon and Obi immediately entered a battle state. They released toxic smoke, and at the door, the robots had arrived, but it was not enough to kill the two Jedi. The door of the room opened. Two lightsabers flashed in the smoke. The robot guards were immediately countered by the two teachers and students. Obi and Qui-Gon swung the sabers to cut each robot down, then used the Force to throw them away. These robots were not their rivals. Soon they defeated them all and went to the command room. Qui-Gon used his saber to cut through the thick door. Gunray began to be scared, and at the same time, two large super battle droids came. They both fired blasters and shielded, forcing the two teachers and students to temporarily retreat. They saw the droid ships preparing to land and decided to sneak aboard one. A while later, in the control room, the Naboo queen named Amidala contacted Gunray and wanted them to withdraw, since the Chancellor sent two Jedi to negotiate. This proved that they must not encircle the planet Naboo again, but they still refused, citing no official order from the Senate. After that, the Queen ordered the army to be ready. When the signal was cut off, and at the same time, the army of the Trade Federation also began to land and occupy the planet. Gunray also received word that the Jedi were hiding on this planet. Elsewhere, almost all indigenous people had been evacuated by giant machines. He could save only one person named Jar Jar, a native Gungan who could talk. Obi now also ran while being chased by machines. The rules almost immediately lowered them. Then, out of gratitude for saving their lives, they decided to guide them to safety nearby. From Jar Jar's mouth, they both learned of the safest place there. Wading deep into the bottom of the river, unexpectedly, there was a kingdom below. The two were quickly taken to the boss's place. They tried to persuade the boss and the people to support the Naboo on the ground, but they did not agree. The affairs of the Naboo had nothing to do with them, and the Gungans are also safe underwater. In the end, all three were led to the planet's core. In exchange for their luck, they would be taken to the surface. Meanwhile, in space, Gunray was reporting the progress to Sidious and revealing the plan to control the Senate to carry out the invasion using droids. It turns out that what they targeted was not this planet, but Queen Amidala. Because she was supported by the Senate members, they wanted to control her. Back to teacher and student Qui-Gon and Obi. On the way, the transport suddenly shook. While Obi fixed it, a giant monster appeared in front of the ship. Although they avoided it, it chased closely. Even more amazing, a monster bigger than the sea monster rushed to bite it. It was very scary, but the two Jedi calmly handled the situation and succeeded getting to the surface. Above, with the overwhelming power of the droid army, everything ended. The Federation occupied the planet, and they were escorting the Queen. On the other side, the group of Qui-Gon and Obi was also monitoring and waiting for the opportunity to jump down to save the Queen. Qui-Gon destroyed two droids, then he and Obi used their sabers to quickly kill the platoon. The whole group then ran to a ship to escape. After defeating the droids on the ship, everyone headed to a planet with allies to get help for Amidala. Unfortunately, the enemy also quickly discovered them and gave chase. The pursuit was extremely tense. Their ship had taken many hits, shields broken and fuel leaking. 4 robots were sent out to repair, but they still did not have enough fuel to reach the destination. In the end, they landed on a nearby planet to repair the ship. It was not Federation controlled, and they could hardly be found. On the other side, Lord Sidious knew what had happened. He sent his apprentice to handle this. But Sidious still didn't know the two Jedi were alive because Gunray had hidden that from him. At this time, on the desert planet, everyone walked to a city of indigenous people. Going to a store to find parts to repair their ship, they were introduced to a slave boy by the shop owner named Anakin Skywalker. He was very smart and knowledgeable. Meanwhile, Qui-Gon was trying to negotiate with the owner, but they had no money here. Now they were poor on this planet and were kicked out. Luckily, Anakin then let stay at his place. During the meal, Anakin revealed how to get the parts. It was by winning a race that he often participated in. Although everyone protested when entrusting this to someone so young, Qui-Gon saw something in Anakin: the Force. Anakin's Force potential was higher than usual, even greater than any Jedi he knew. He had the potential to become the most powerful Jedi in the future. In the darkness of space, a dark ship arrived at the planet. Its occupant deployed flying devices into the city to find people. Then the race took place. The riders drove their vehicles. Unfortunately, Anakin's pod was stuck and delayed at the start. The race quickly became tense when an opponent was eliminated after being forced into a crash. Anakin took advantage to catch up and overtake. A dirty player tried to force him off course, but was outmaneuvered by Anakin and the Jedi. At this time, gunmen among the spectators fired at the participants' pods. Anakin was accidentally targeted, but he stayed calm. After that, there were only 2 pods. The race was tense. The whole crowd was in an uproar. Then Anakin pulled a wire at the last moment, making the opponent lose control and crash. Anakin finally won the race amid the crowd's cheers. According to the agreement made before, Qui-Gon received the necessary parts. He also made the owner liberate Anakin from slavery. However, Anakin's mother could not be saved. She was satisfied because he could go with Qui-Gon, and was happier still to know he would train Anakin to become a Jedi. Anakin was very sad, but he knew what he must do. Anakin suppressed the pain of parting with her and promised that one day he would come back to free her. Having received news of their position, Darth Maul launched his attack. Qui-Gon stayed to hold him off. Then the 2 Jedi fought. After Anakin boarded the ship, Obi-Wan piloted it. Qui-Gon also took the opportunity to jump aboard. Not long after, the whole group reached the Coruscant planet, where the Senate was. At this time, the Supreme Chancellor came to welcome them. After reporting, the Jedi also returned to the headquarters of the Jedi Council and reported everything about their assailant. He was from a race called the Sith, thought extinct long ago. Then Qui-Gon introduced Anakin to everyone. Qui-Gon believed that Anakin fulfilled a prophecy to bring balance to the Force. He asked the Council to allow Anakin to be trained. Regarding Anakin, the whole Council, including Yoda and Windu, doubted this. The Council met with Anakin. Yoda sensed fear in Anakin and thought he was not suitable to be a Jedi. Even so, Obi obeyed his master's wish and accepted Anakin as his Padawan. After that, all 3 were assigned the mission to find the Sith behind the Trade Federation's control. Meanwhile, in the Senate, the Queen was arguing with the Trade Federation about the attack on her planet. Chancellor Valorum took this opportunity to be overthrown, and Senator Palpatine became the new Chancellor. Even so, the Senate did not agree to help the Queen's homeland. Depressed about the attitudes and delay, Amidala decided to return to Naboo. The whole team set out. This time, the Queen had a plan. She would personally see the leader of the Gungans in the ocean. With sincerity and honor, Amidala finally persuaded the leader to join. The next day, everything was deployed. The plan was, while the 2 armies confronted each other, the Jedi would sneak into the palace to capture the Viceroy. Additionally, they would have to destroy the control ship for the droid army. Then, all droids would stop working. A few hours later, the underwater army emerged from the forests. The droid army also moved forward and fired at their energy shields. At the same time, a battle began in the palace, as the Queen's guards and the Jedi had sneaked inside. Amid the rain of blaster fire, Anakin hid for safety. Unexpectedly, he got into a starfighter and accidentally activated the automatic pilot. The starfighter flew into space. Anakin bravely joined the battle, aiming for the control ship. On the ground, the shield was about to fail. Thousands of droids were released. The Gungan army also activated their shields. The 2 sides began to confront each other directly. At the same time in the palace, Darth Maul had appeared. The 2 Jedi fought him. The Queen led people inside. After that, despite their hard effort, everything was going badly for the Gungans. Suddenly, Anakin, while pursuing, accidentally landed inside the control ship. He fought the guards and damaged their reactors, causing a series of explosions. The control ship exploded from within, and Anakin escaped safely to the cheers of everyone on the planet below as the droids deactivated. In their battle against the Sith apprentice, the 2 Jedi attacked, but Darth Maul easily defended himself with his double-bladed lightsaber. At this time, he feigned weakness and separated Obi from his master. While fighting alone, Qui-Gon was struck down right in front of Obi, who could only watch helplessly. Escaping the energy gates, Obi-Wan was angry and rushed out, even though he couldn't defeat Maul alone. In the end, Obi-Wan was kicked down a shaft, but managed to cling to a ledge. At this time, Obi-Wan focused all his power, jumped up, took his master's lightsaber, and cut Darth Maul in 2. As he was dying, Qui-Gon instructed Obi-Wan to take care of Anakin. He still believed he was the chosen one to bring balance to the Force. The war on the planet Naboo later ended with the surrender of the Viceroy, and Palpatine officially became the new Chancellor of the Senate. The peace treaty was signed on Naboo amid the joy of both species. Returning to the Council, Obi had become one of the Jedi Knights. Although Yoda did not want it, he eventually accepted Obi-Wan as Anakin's master. Qui-Gon's will. At the knighting ceremony, the danger of the Sith was now clearer. Both Yoda and Windu were worried about the uncertain future, as Maul's master still wasn't known. 10 years later, there was unrest in the Galactic Senate. Thousands of planets declared to leave the Republic. The separatist movement, led by a former Jedi Master named Count Dooku, created many difficulties for Jedi Knights trying to maintain peace and order in the galaxy. At this time, a spacecraft approached the Coruscant planet. Aboard it was Amidala. She returned for the Senate session to vote on a critical issue, establishing an army for the Republic. The ship landed, and the group disembarked when it suddenly exploded. Many people died. It seemed Amidala was killed, but it was a decoy. The Queen had disguised herself as a handmaiden. Suppressing her grief, Amidala went to the meeting where Jedi Masters Yoda and Windu were talking with the Chancellor. Everything had gone too far. The Republic, united for thousands of years, was splitting into 2 sides. According to intelligence, the Separatists were building their own army. The Republic couldn't depend only on the Jedi Knights. At this time, Amidala arrived. Everyone learned of her incident. Since Count Dooku was also a Jedi, they would assign Jedi to protect the Queen. They chose no one else but Obi-Wan and his student, Anakin Skywalker, now grown up. Anakin was very embarrassed to see Amidala again after many years. He then suggested a plan to find the assassin, not just protect her passively. That evening, the mastermind sent a female assassin. She used droid bugs carrying poison to carry out the assassination. When they were about to reach Amidala, fortunately, a service droid discovered them. Alerted by the droid, very quickly Anakin rushed in, just in time to slice the 2 bugs right in front of the Queen. Realizing the assassin used a remote, Obi-Wan jumped out the window, clinging to the device. On the other side, Anakin ran down and took a speeder to chase as the assassin fired at him. Anakin caught up and rescued his master mid-air. After a chase, they finally cornered the female assassin. Suddenly, her master appeared and defended her. The next morning, they reported this to the Jedi Council. The Council decided that Anakin would protect Queen Amidala on her home planet of Naboo, and Obi would investigate the assassin's trail. A few hours later, handing over Senate duties to Jar Jar, Amidala and Anakin were on the way back to Naboo. Meanwhile, Obi-Wan started investigating the killer based on old contacts. He went to the archives and learned of a planet that could produce clones, possibly related to this. Strangely, the Republic had no information about it. Obi-Wan went to see Master Yoda while he was teaching younglings. He showed him the planet. Yoda quickly realized the data had been deleted, and only a Jedi could have done that. Not long after, Obi reached the mysterious planet. Entering, he met a native who announced they had been expecting him. Meeting the leader, Obi-Wan received unexpected news. A Jedi named Sifo Dyas, dead for 10 years, had ordered 200,000 clone troopers and millions more were being produced. This was indeed a powerful army, superior to the droid army. The Republic's army was cloned from a bounty hunter. Obi-Wan's premonition told him this was the previous assassin. At the same time, outside, the bounty hunter arrived at the base riding a flying creature. Then Obi-Wan was taken to meet him. As soon as he saw him, Obi-Wan knew he was the assassin and hurriedly contacted the Jedi. Yoda and Windu were also shocked to hear about the clone army. Their foresight could not see this future. The Jedi then ordered Obi-Wan to capture Jango Fett for questioning. Returning to confront him, Obi saw Jango and his son Boba preparing to flee. Jango immediately fired a blaster to block Obi, then fired rockets, and the ship's cannon also fired at him. Fortunately, Obi was only knocked back, not injured. Obi jumped up and kicked, launching himself into the air. The two rushed into a fight, each landing blows, and finally, grappling, both fell down a slope. Jango clung on above and cut a cable, causing Obi to fall towards the sea. Luckily, Obi quickly jumped to a walkway. When Obi regained his footing, the two had left. He could only throw a tracking device onto their ship's hull. Shortly after, they discovered Obi-Wan was still tailing them. They flew to an asteroid field, bombing to create debris that hurtled towards Obi-Wan's ship. Thanks to the Force, Obi sensed an advance. He skillfully slipped through the debris to avoid the objects. Suddenly, Jango attacked from behind, firing continuously into Obi-Wan's ship. Finally, Jango locked on to fire missiles, aiming to finish him. Obi ordered his droid to release debris to detonate the missiles, and hid on an asteroid. Thinking Obi-Wan dead, Jango then landed on the planet Geonosis. Obi followed and found an abnormal concentration of ships there. He monitored alone and discovered the Separatist senators. They and the clone army were ready for a plot to overthrow the Senate and destroy the Jedi Council. Then they would take control of the whole galaxy. During the entire time Obi was uncovering the truth, on the planet Naboo, Anakin and Amidala had developed feelings for each other. But Jedi are not allowed to love, and Amidala also had responsibilities to her people. In the end, they decided to keep their love secret. Then one day, Anakin was awakened by a nightmare. He dreamed that his mother was in danger. Then the two returned to Anakin's home planet. They went to Watto, his former owner. Unfortunately, Anakin's mother had been captured by Tusken Raiders. When Anakin found her, it was too late. Having lost the person he loved, Anakin was consumed by misery and rage. He slaughtered the entire Raider camp. Anakin's suffering was sensed by Master Yoda from afar, who worried that Anakin might fall into the dark side. The next day, Obi-Wan's message arrived. Everyone heard about the clone army. The communication was later cut off as Obi-Wan was attacked. Anakin and Amidala then went to rescue Obi-Wan. In the Senate, there was an emergency meeting. They quickly granted emergency powers to Chancellor Palpatine so he could mobilize the army and declare war. Besides, Windu and Yoda were also divided up. Windu would lead Jedi to rescue Obi-Wan. Yoda would go to secure the clone army. On Geonosis, Count Dooku met Obi-Wan in prison and tried to persuade him to surrender. Dooku affirmed that the Senate was dominated by a Sith Lord. He even said Qui-Gon would have joined his side if still alive. Of course, Obi-Wan didn't believe it and knew only that Dooku had betrayed the Jedi. Not long after, Amidala and Anakin arrived on the planet. They went into a droid factory, its central storage. However, the two were quickly discovered by monsters, Geonosians. Anakin fought to protect Amidala as they retreated to a door, but it was a dead end. Amidala fell onto a conveyor belt in the droid production line. Anakin immediately fought, searching for her while battling the monsters. Unfortunately, his lightsaber was destroyed. Meanwhile, Amidala dodged machinery. Her droid, R2-D2, then intervened to free her, but quickly both were captured by battle droids and Geonosian guards. The two were brought to the arena, where Obi-Wan was also tied up. Monsters were released. The three would be devoured. The Jedi used their skills to break their chains. They fought the beasts. While Anakin controlled a reek and rescued Amidala and Obi, droids were sent out. Thinking all hope was lost, Mace Windu suddenly appeared with Jedi reinforcements. The battle erupted between the Jedi and the Separatist droid army. The whole arena became chaotic. Seeing the assassin Jango, Windu quickly confronted and defeated him. Although they had defeated many, the droids kept coming. The Separatists' numerical superiority became overwhelming. Gradually, the Jedi were pushed back into a corner, surrounded and told to surrender or die. No one would give up. They would fight to the last breath. Suddenly, spacecraft appeared in the sky. Yoda brought the clone army to rescue them. The ships created a landing zone to extract the Jedi. They continued to attack separatist positions. Then, reunited with tens of thousands of troops, the two sides began fighting on the ground and in the air. The separatists also launched their entire droid army, but were still overwhelmed by the clones. The separatists began evacuating by ship. Anti-aircraft fire was constantly shot, destroying forces still on the ground. On the other side, Obi and Anakin saw Dooku fleeing. They chased him to a hangar built inside a mountain. The two of them fought Dooku. Anakin couldn't control his anger and was thrown back by Dooku's force attack. Obi tried to stop Dooku but couldn't. He engaged him but was quickly defeated by the Count. As Dooku prepared to deliver a killing blow to Obi, Anakin intervened just in time. Obi used the Force to give Anakin his lightsaber. Now wielding two blades, Anakin confronted Dooku. However, after only a few moves, one saber was cut from his hand, and shortly after, Anakin's arm was severed. Neither of them had power equal to Dooku. In the end, Yoda appeared. It turned out Dooku had once been Yoda's student. Both were equal in the power of the Force. They then switched to lightsaber combat. Quickly noticing an opening, Dooku distracted Yoda to escape. He returned to Coruscant and gave his master, Sidious, the plans for a superweapon. Everything was still happening as Sidious's plan. With the clone army's overwhelming power, Chancellor Palpatine used it to suppress the separatist systems. Anakin was fitted with a robotic arm. Not long after returning to Naboo, Anakin and Amidala had a secret wedding. Meanwhile, Yoda sensed darkness about the future, as the galaxy was gradually sinking into chaos. 3 years later, the Clone Wars raged across the universe between the Republic and the Separatists. At this time, outside the orbit of Coruscant, Republic and Separatist spacecraft fought fiercely. In a surprise attack, the commander of the droid army, General Grievous, attacked the Republic capital and kidnapped Chancellor Palpatine. Aboard the Separatist flagship, the Invisible Hand, Obi-Wan and Anakin were part of the team sent to rescue the Chancellor. Many of their escort fighters were destroyed, and missiles chased them. Evading and weaving into the hangar bay, they ignited their lightsabers and fought the battle droids. Despite being overwhelmed in number, they deflected all the blaster bolts. The master and apprentice cut their way through, finally retreating to an elevator as they were taken to the bridge. Behind them, all the droids were destroyed, and in seconds, all the guards in the elevator were killed. Then they reached Chancellor Palpatine. At this moment, Dooku appeared. Obi and Anakin faced Dooku again. This time, two people rushed him. Dooku couldn't defeat them both and could only defend against their coordinated assault. Then he used the Force to make Obi unconscious. Seeing that situation, Anakin rushed to fight Dooku alone. This time it was different. In the duel, he cut off Dooku's hands. Then he crossed both lightsabers at Dooku's neck. Urged on by Chancellor Palpatine, Anakin coldly executed him. This satisfied the Chancellor greatly. Then Palpatine urged Anakin to leave Obi-Wan behind. Of course, Anakin refused and carried his master out. Outside, the ship was also damaged and started crashing, causing them to lose gravity and fall. When the ship partially stabilized, their group was captured by General Grievous's battle droids. Thinking they had secured the Jedi, they were surprised as the Jedi quickly grabbed their sabers and escaped. The guards were cut down in turn. Seeing no escape, Grievous smashed through the ship's viewport. He easily drifted to another ship. Meanwhile, their escape pod lost control and fell into the atmosphere. In the end, they miraculously survived and landed at the spaceport. So, the rescue mission was successful. Chancellor Palpatine expressed his thanks to the Jedi Order. Because the Separatist leader was gone, only General Grievous remained. Anakin then met Amidala waiting in a corner. She had been very worried and feared he was dead after seeing the ship crash. It was at this time Amidala announced the good news that she was pregnant. On the distant volcanic planet Mustafar, General Grievous reported to his master, Lord Sidious. It turned out Dooku's death was also part of Sidious's plan, as he was about to gain a far more powerful apprentice than Dooku. That midnight, Anakin suddenly woke from a nightmare. He had dreamed that Amidala would die in childbirth, just like his mother. And Jedi dreams are often premonitions. Anakin vowed he would not let anything happen to her. The next morning, at the council headquarters, Anakin sought out Master Yoda for counsel about the dream. Although he didn't tell the full details, Yoda advised him to be cautious about attachments and the future. Because the fear of loss is a path to the dark side, Anakin must train to let go. Dwelling on it would lure him to darkness. Then, bidding farewell to Yoda, he rejoined Obi for their mission. He said he was summoned by the Chancellor. Obi warned that Palpatine wanted something from Anakin and told him to be careful. Unexpectedly, Palpatine wanted Anakin to be on the Jedi Council. This surprised him. It was something Anakin had long desired. However, when he returned, the majority of council members did not agree. Including Windu, Anakin thought that he did not have the level of a Jedi Master. Anakin felt that the Jedi did not value him despite the victories he had achieved. Yoda then went to the front line, where planets were being attacked by the Separatist faction. In the evening, the Chancellor called Anakin to meet with him. He said the Jedi Council is trying to betray the Senate and wants to take control of the entire Republic. Palpatine continued to tell Anakin about a powerful Sith in the past. This Sith had the ability to heal anything. This story troubled Anakin as the news of Amidala's death grew more likely. He wanted to learn that power, but the condition was he must be a Sith, not a Jedi. Back to report the news of Grievous's whereabouts to the Jedi Council, Anakin was not sent. Windu ignored him and chose Obi-Wan. Before leaving, Obi-Wan tried to encourage Anakin, saying he would soon be recognized by the Council. Not long after, Obi-Wan's ship moved at light speed and stopped at the planet called Utapau. He approached the forested area here. The representative of this place secretly asked for help and reported that Grievous was here with thousands of battle droids. The whole planet was holding hostages. Obi-Wan then reported to the Clone Corps and pretended to withdraw. Then, after a while, he rode a beast to the Separatist side. Watching for a while from above, Obi-Wan suddenly jumped down to fight. The droids were quickly defeated by Obi-Wan. Grievous decided to join the battle himself. He took off his cloak to reveal 4 arms holding 4 lightsabers. He thought 4 swords were better than 1, so he rushed to attack Obi-Wan. The general rotated the swords at high speed like a wall. Then he attacked first. Obi-Wan had difficulty avoiding the blows, and then in just a moment he countered and cut off one of Grievous's hands. It was also soon after that Obi-Wan slashed the second robotic arm. At this moment, the clone army landed from all directions to support Obi-Wan. With overwhelming power, the droid army was quickly destroyed. Taking advantage of the chaos, Grievous fled in a terrain vehicle. Obi-Wan rode another native creature chasing, keeping up with him. The two of them moved and fought. After a while, the vehicle plunged into an abyss. The two jumped out to continue fighting. Then Obi-Wan accidentally dropped his lightsaber. He and Grievous fought hand to hand. Because he was a droid, Grievous overwhelmed him in strength. Fortunately, Obi-Wan used the Force to pull a blaster to him. Then he used the blaster to shoot continuously into Grievous's chest cavity. Grievous was finally destroyed. Meanwhile, at the Jedi Council, they received news of the victory. Windu sent Anakin to report this to the Chancellor to see his reaction. Windu had a hunch about a bad conspiracy from the Chancellor. When reporting this to Palpatine, based on the Chancellor's attitudes and words, Anakin suspected he was a Sith Lord because he knew about the dark side of the Force. Anakin quickly drew his lightsaber on the Chancellor. However, Palpatine promised him he could save Amidala from death. Finally, Anakin lowered his lightsaber, planning to turn him over to the Council. Then, at the Jedi Council, Anakin reported everything to Windu. But once again, Windu left Anakin at the temple. A while later, Anakin visited Amidala and thought that if the Chancellor were gone, he would no longer have the opportunity to save Amidala. Finally, he decided to leave the temple. At the Chancellor's office, the Jedi came. Palpatine admitted he was a Sith Lord and drew his lightsaber to fight. The other 3 Jedi Knights were quickly killed. Only Windu remained. The fight was extremely intense. But then Windu forced Palpatine against the wall. At this moment, Anakin appeared. Because Windu wanted to execute the Chancellor without a trial, Anakin stopped him by slashing Windu's hand. Taking that opportunity, Palpatine used Force lightning against Windu, causing him to fall out the window. At this time, there was no way back for Anakin. He lost hope and only chose to follow the dark side, just to save Amidala. He was willing to become an apprentice and
swear loyalty to the dark side. Palpatine also revealed his identity. He is Darth Sidious. From now on, the young Anakin Skywalker was gone. Only Vader, the name Sidious had just given him. Sidious wanted him to go to the Jedi Temple to kill everyone there. Then go to the Mustafar star system to eliminate the Separatist leaders. At that time, no one would prevent him from ruling the galaxy. Vader obeyed the command. He led clone troopers to the Jedi Temple. The Jedi were violently killed, all of them, including the younglings. In other battlefields, when receiving Order 66 from Sidious, the clones turned their weapons on the Jedi Knights across every battlefield. Teammates turned to betray them. This happened too unexpectedly. No one could counter it. Each Jedi fell everywhere. Obi-Wan was also hit by blaster fire. Yoda immediately sensed the disturbance through the Force, but thanks to this, he promptly deflected the bolts and escaped. Then Obi-Wan was lucky to survive, hiding and sneaking onto a ship to return. Currently, there was no safe place. He suddenly received a message and went to Yoda's location. When gathered, Obi-Wan and Yoda realized that the Jedi Temple had a beacon signal. This was a trap for returning Jedi. They decided to return to deactivate it. Anakin, after wiping out the Separatist leadership, returned to Amidala. He told her the Jedi had tried to betray the Republic. Amidala was shocked by this, but she still believed it because Anakin said it. They said goodbye to each other, and Anakin went to the planet Mustafar to eliminate the Separatist group. Here, Anakin used the Force to block all escape and destroy everyone. And Yoda and Obi-Wan returned to the temple to defeat the Clone Guards. They ran to the council chamber and witnessed horrific scenes. The two quickly realized that the younglings had been killed by a lightsaber. After accessing the security system, they were very shocked and dumbfounded when watching the security footage of Anakin killing everyone. Yoda then decided to confront Sidious, and Obi-Wan would confront Anakin. In the Senate, Sidious blamed all crimes on the Jedi and ordered their arrest throughout the galaxy. At the same time, the Chancellor also changed the government from the Republic to the Galactic Empire, marking the rule of the Sith. Amidala was helpless and could do nothing else, as Sidious was supported by the majority. Returning to her apartment, she received more shocking news when Obi-Wan came to tell her everything. He also confessed there was no other way now but to stop Anakin. Immediately after Obi-Wan left, Amidala went to the planet Mustafar, where Anakin was. At this time, Obi-Wan secretly hid in her ship. Not long after, the two of them reunited, but she quickly realized that Anakin's true nature had changed. He had really become Vader. Suddenly, Obi-Wan appeared, causing Anakin to misunderstand that Amidala had betrayed him. He could not control himself and immediately used the Force to choke Amidala unconscious. Then, a battle between master and apprentice finally took place. Both sides engaged in tense fighting. They fought from place to place. The moves were as if they wanted to take each other's lives. At the same time, on another battlefield, Yoda came to see Sidious. Sidious used Force lightning against Yoda. Yoda responded by using the Force to push Sidious back. Both rushed to fight with lightsabers. Then they once again used the Force. Unfortunately, Yoda's Force lightning was weaker than Sidious's. He was knocked down onto the Senate pod. Seeing that he could not win, Yoda took advantage of his small body to find a way out. He crawled into a ventilation shaft, then jumped down a hole where Senator Organa, an ally of the Jedi, was waiting. Sidious, on the other hand, also did not chase further when sensing Vader was in danger. On the other planet, Obi-Wan and Anakin were fighting on a platform over lava when a lava wave melted part of it. With no other way, Obi-Wan and Anakin jumped down. Each landed on a separate suspended platform. The duel continued over the lava river. Obi-Wan quickly jumped onto the shore, advising Anakin to give up. Anakin refused and jumped up to attack Obi-Wan when Obi-Wan cut off his legs. Anakin collapsed near the lava and caught fire. Despite being heartbroken, Obi-Wan could not save him due to Anakin's evil actions. Then he turned away. Not long after, Palpatine arrived and took Anakin back. A few days later, Amidala successfully gave birth to 2 children, Luke and Leia, but unfortunately she did not survive. The funeral then took place amid everyone's grief. Everyone agreed to hide the children. They faked a stillborn pregnancy at the funeral. Then Senator Organa adopted the girl, Leia, and Obi-Wan took care of the boy and brought him to his relatives on the planet Tatooine. Anakin was rebuilt with technology, but this time only Vader in black armor remained. Sidious deceived Vader into believing he had harmed Amidala. This made Vader suffer and completely sink into the darkness. Sidious also reformed the Empire while constructing a huge weapon the size of a planet. 18 years later, the galaxy was now completely controlled by the Empire. Even so, a rebel alliance stood up in resistance. They stole the design of the weapon, called the Death Star. The weapon could destroy an entire planet. The Imperial army began to pursue their ship. On the ship, all of Leia's troops were gradually destroyed quickly by stormtroopers. Then Vader appeared. At a corner of the ship, Princess Leia hid the stolen designs inside a droid, and sent them successfully to a nearby planet. The stormtroopers did not shoot the escape pod because they detected no signs of life. And Leia was not so lucky. She was arrested and taken to Vader. He realized she had joined the rebel resistance. When Leia did not talk, he imprisoned her. Then, discovering Vader sent a team chasing the 2 droids. The droids had landed on the planet and were moving in the desert. The stormtroopers chasing them were ambushed by scavengers. Then the droids were sold at a market. Here they were bought by a young man. This guy's name is Luke Skywalker. Luke accidentally found the recording of Princess Leia. In the recording, the princess was asking for help from someone named Obi-Wan Kenobi. He was the only hope for the resistance against the Empire. Luke immediately thought of a hermit living near his home named Ben Kenobi. He went with the droids to find that person. That night, unfortunately, the droid ran off. Luke had to go into the dangerous Jundland wastes until he found it and was suddenly attacked by Tusken Raiders. At this time, Ben Kenobi appeared and used the Force to make them flee. He is the real Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan revealed that Luke's father had passed away. Luke's father used to be a Jedi like Obi-Wan. Luke was curious about the reason, and Obi-Wan said his father was killed by Vader. This made Luke really want to avenge his father. After listening to Leia's full message, Obi-Wan wanted to teach Luke about the Force, but Luke still had his aunt and uncle at home and could not leave them. At the same time, on the Death Star, the senior members of the Empire were meeting to discuss the rebel threat. The Galactic Senate was dissolved by Emperor Sidious. Now the only threat was the stolen Death Star plans. Getting them back would ensure the Empire maintained its threat over the galaxy. Back on the planet Tatooine, when they returned, they discovered traces of Imperial stormtroopers. Luke grew worried and rushed home. As if his worst fears were realized, his home was devastated, his family gone. It was now that he agreed to become Obi-Wan's student. The next morning, Obi-Wan and the 2 droids went to a spaceport to find a ship to leave Tatooine. Thanks to the Force, Obi-Wan easily used a mind trick to bypass the soldiers' harsh inspection, and the 4 went to a cantina. Here they met a man named Han Solo and a Wookiee named Chewbacca. Han is a smuggler, but has excellent piloting skills. Due to a debt, he defied the danger to agree to take them away. Not long after meeting, Han's creditor Jabba the Hutt was waiting. Fortunately, Han persuaded him to extend the debt, though Jabba still warned that Han would be wanted throughout the galaxy. Then all prepared to board the ship. Stormtroopers also received news and ran in, firing. In the end, they had to leave urgently. Out in space, the trouble was not over, as an Imperial Star Destroyer chased them, attacking continuously. But they were fortunate to jump to lightspeed just before the ship was destroyed. At the same time, unable to force Leia to reveal the rebel base location, the Empire decided to demonstrate the Death Star's power. Immediately, Leia's home planet of Alderaan was destroyed. On the ship, while Luke was practicing with the Force, Obi-Wan suddenly felt that millions of lives had just vanished. At the end of the lightspeed jump, Obi-Wan's whole group was shocked to realize that Alderaan was now only debris. Quickly they were discovered, and the Imperial ship used a tractor beam to pull them into the Death Star. Hiding within the ship when they docked, they defeated a few stormtroopers and disguised themselves. They split up. One team would disable the tractor beam so the ship could leave, and Obi-Wan went alone to disable the station's tractor beam controls. At this time, the droids also discovered Princess Leia's location on the station. The others set out to rescue Leia. They used Chewbacca like a prisoner to disguise themselves and easily infiltrated. Arriving at the detention block, a firefight broke out. Fortunately, no one was injured, and they successfully rescued Leia and fled together. Obi-Wan successfully disabled the tractor beam controls. Obi-Wan found his way back, only to see that Vader had blocked his path, having sensed him through the Force and lying in ambush. The two sides dueled fiercely. Suddenly, seeing Luke watching, Obi-Wan stopped and deliberately let Vader strike him down. Luke was very shocked to witness his master's death. He lost control, ignoring everyone. Obi-Wan's body had disappeared. Then Obi-Wan's voice appeared, telling Luke to calm down and board the ship. The others were waiting. The spacecraft escaped to the planet where the rebel base waited. They embarked on researching the Death Star plans. It had a critical weakness. They just needed to destroy the reactor core, and the station would be destroyed. To do it, they needed to shoot an accurate shot through a small thermal exhaust port. The torpedo would lead directly into the reactor. After agreeing on the plan, everyone prepared. Han received his payment and decided to leave even when Leia urged him to stay. A while later, the battle happened in space near the Death Star. The rebel fighters tried to approach step by step. There was little time left before the Death Star reached firing position to destroy the rebel base. The Empire's defenses caused many difficulties. The fighters were dodging TIE fighters. 30 ships of the Rebel Alliance were too small compared to the powerful fleet. Each one was gradually destroyed. Vader also directly participated in the battle. The Death Star in a few minutes would reach firing range. The battle was more intense than ever. Vader was lining up a shot on Luke's fighter when suddenly Han Solo appeared from nowhere, allowing Luke to escape Vader's pursuit. There were a few seconds left. Luke focused, using the Force to aim. Then he actually hit and successfully flew the torpedoes into the core. Shortly thereafter, the Death Star was destroyed. Everyone returned in victory. This was also the heaviest defeat. Empire established up to now, a new start for the rise of the rebellion. 3 years later, despite destroying the superweapon, the battle was still ongoing. The Imperial Army continued to hunt the rebel forces from their secret bases and pursue throughout the galaxy. To avoid the search of Imperial space fleets, a group of rebels led by Princess Leia set up a secret base on the icy planet Hoth. At this time, under Vader's command, Imperial probe droids landed on the planet's surface. Han and Chewbacca destroyed one probe droid when it got close to the base. Although it was stopped, it only bought more time. They could not stay here anymore. Vader was sure they were there. The Imperial Army began landing from space. The two sides broke into a fight. Under the overwhelming firepower, the rebels had to withdraw. Everyone boarded transports to leave the planet. But again, with his piloting skill, Han evaded Imperial ships and brought them to Cloud City to lay low. On the other side, Luke, piloting his X-Wing to cover the retreat, was separated. He followed the voice of Obi-Wan and reached the swamp planet Dagobah. Unexpectedly, he met Yoda again. Yoda was weak after the war in the past and no longer had his former fighting spirit. Thanks to Obi-Wan's spirit persuading him to teach Luke about the Force, Yoda accepted, using his last strength to train him. Meanwhile, Vader talked to Sidious. Sidious revealed Luke as the son of Anakin, Vader. He wanted Vader to turn Luke to the dark side or destroy him. Vader did not hesitate to accept this command. Not long after, Han of his companion's ship was caught by the Empire using a clever trap at Cloud City. Due to a damaged hyperdrive, Han set course for Bespin where his old friend Lando Calrissian was administrator. Then, hiding within the city's debris field, he landed without being discovered initially. At this time, bounty hunters sent by creditor Jabba were also following them. After just a few days with Yoda, Luke's connection to the Force improved a lot. Experiencing harsh exercises, Luke was like another person. Suddenly, he felt Han and Leia were in danger and wanted to go to them, despite the spirits of Obi-Wan and Yoda trying to stop him, as Luke had not completed his training. On the other side, the group came to Cloud City, greeted by Han's friend Lando, but they quickly discovered this was a trap. Lando had surrendered to Vader beforehand, and they were captured. After a period of time together, Leia had developed feelings for Han. She could only kiss him and helplessly watch him be frozen in carbonite. Han was later handed over to the bounty hunter to bring to Jabba. Everyone was escorted. Suddenly, Lando turned against the Imperials to help the rebels. It turned out he was still loyal and liberated them. Meanwhile, Luke also sneaked into the city, but it was all a trap. He was led to Vader, who was waiting. Both sides began to fight. Because his training was not complete, Luke was easily overwhelmed by Vader. Vader used the Force to disarm Luke, causing him to lose his hand. Vader tried to turn Luke, revealing the truth. He is Anakin Skywalker, Luke's father. Luke received a big shock. He could not believe the father he always respected was evil. In despair, Luke chose to jump down the reactor shaft rather than surrender. Unexpectedly, he survived. Luke then used the Force to call Leia for rescue. All of them escaped the pursuing Star Destroyer by jumping to light speed. Back at the Rebel fleet, Luke was fitted with a prosthetic hand. Here, they planned to rescue Han to stand against the Empire again.
A year later, the Imperial Army was constructing a new Death Star. Emperor Sidious personally came to oversee when everything was not yet complete, especially since Luke was still alive. He himself would supervise the construction of the Death Star too. He also wanted Vader to turn Luke Skywalker to the dark side. Only then would the Empire's power be guaranteed. At the same time, on the planet Tatooine, where Jabba held Han Solo frozen in carbonite, some figures approached. Han was released and woke up from carbonite hibernation. It turned out it was Leia disguised as a bounty hunter. After that, Chewbacca, pretending to be her prisoner, was brought into Jabba's palace. Meanwhile, Luke returned to the planet Dagobah, hoping to complete his Jedi training with Yoda. Luke searched for Yoda, but Yoda was now very old and weak. He revealed he was 900 years old and dying. Yoda confirmed Vader was Luke's father, and revealed that there was another Skywalker, Leia. Before becoming one with the Force, he advised Luke he would only become a Jedi after facing Vader again. After that, he took his last breath and disappeared. Suddenly, Obi-Wan's spirit appeared and encouraged him. He also revealed that Leia is Luke's sister. On the rebel side, Lando had now joined them. A commander reported finding the location of the nearly completed Death Star. Now they could attack unexpectedly, but it currently had a protective shield generated from the forest moon of Endor. To destroy it, they would have to destroy the shield generator on the moon. Thus, the rebel forces had two tasks. One team would land on the moon and destroy the generator, led by Han Solo and Leia, and another, led by Lando, would lead the starfighter attack on the Death Star after the shield was lowered. Luke had also returned and joined Han and Leia. They boarded a stolen Imperial shuttle to infiltrate. Even so, Luke's presence was sensed by Vader through the Force, but Vader let them pass. It seemed Vader intended something. Then they all landed on the moon. Unfortunately, their team was discovered by scout troopers. They rode on a stolen speeder bike trying to lose their pursuers. A chase ensued.
A few stormtroopers crashed into trees and exploded. Finally, with skill and speed, Luke and Leia evaded their chasers. On the other side, Leia was separated and found by the native Ewoks. This unexpectedly became her chance. Leia befriended an Ewok after saving him from a predator. Everyone then gathered at the Ewok village. Luke revealed to Leia that he was her brother and decided to surrender to Vader to find a way to resolve everything. He also told Leia she could learn to use the Force. A while later, Vader came for Luke. Vader called him Anakin, but it was no use because Vader now only craved power. He wanted Luke to join him to overthrow Sidious and rule the galaxy. A few hours later, Han's group tried to reach the shield generator while Luke faced the Emperor. Outside, the rebel fleet arrived and waited for the shield to lower to attack. At this time, Imperial troops suddenly appeared to surround everyone. Thinking that everything was lost, the Ewok army supported them and fought back. Then Han Solo placed explosives and destroyed the generator. Above, a huge space battle began. Rebel ships flew into the Death Star's superstructure. Imperial forces also responded fiercely. Sidious watched Luke and Vader duel, saying only one would live to become his apprentice. Though Luke fought strongly, Vader sensed Leia's presence through Luke's thoughts and threatened her. Enraged, Luke attacked Vader overwhelmingly and cut off his hand. Seeing Vader helpless, Luke stopped. Sidious then electrocuted Luke, causing him great pain. Witnessing his son suffering, Vader felt conflict. He suddenly grabbed Sidious and threw him down the reactor shaft, killing him. After that, Luke helped the wounded Vader. Vader, once Anakin, was now too weak. Anakin wanted Luke to remove his mask so he could see his son with his own eyes. Then Anakin took his last breath. At the same time, Lando flew into the Death Star and bombed the main reactor. A few minutes later, the Death Star exploded. Later, Luke went to Endor to cremate his father's body and returned to reunite with everyone. Both Emperor Sidious and Vader were gone. The Empire quickly collapsed. The galaxy was now liberated, opening a new future. 20 years later, the Empire was gone, but the Republic was still threatened. Everything was peaceful only for a time. A new organization named the First Order rose cruelly from the remnants of the Empire. They nearly controlled the galaxy again. Luke Skywalker now disappeared without a trace. With the help of the Republic, General Leia led the resistance, still trying to find her brother Luke to restore peace and justice to the galaxy. Leia had sent her most trusted pilot, Poe Dameron, to the planet Jakku to get a map fragment leading to Luke's location. The First Order's forces arrived in the village. They began landing and firing towards the people. At this time, a stormtrooper designated FN-2187 suddenly had a strange feeling witnessing his comrades kill civilians. Poe, cornered, had no choice but to give the map to his droid BB-8. After everything was controlled, a ship landed. The man who appeared was Kylo Ren, a powerful dark side warrior of the Order. He approached Lorsan Tekka to ask about the map. When Tekka refused, Kylo killed him on the spot. Poe, hiding nearby, angrily fired secretly, but the bolt was stopped by Kylo's force power. Poe was captured, and Kylo ordered the village destroyed. Facing the scene, the stormtrooper FN-2187 awakened rationally and hesitated. Kylo looked at him for a moment and left. On the First Order command ship, Poe was interrogated. The other stormtrooper, Finn, was still panicked and did not know why they did such evil things. Poe refused to talk until Kylo used the Force to probe his mind. Then Kylo sent him back to Jakku to find the droid. Back on Jakku, there was a girl named Rey. From a young age, she was abandoned by her family on this desert planet. She had to become a scavenger, waiting for her family to come back. Every day, the things she found were brought to a trading outpost to exchange for food. While eating, she suddenly saw scavengers carrying BB-8, Poe's droid. Rey rushed over and liberated it. Although she showed the droid the way to Nima outpost, it kept following her. On the First Order ship, the stormtrooper FN-2187 suddenly came to rescue Poe. He couldn't stay with the Order anymore and needed Poe's help to escape. Because he had no name, Poe called him Finn. Finn pretended to escort Poe out, and they captured a TIE fighter. After successfully escaping the hangar, the two dodged turbolaser fire. They dodged the cannons, but in the end, they couldn't avoid being hit and crash-landed on Jakku. Not long after, Finn woke in the desert. He was lucky to survive and went to find Poe. Finn could only take Poe's jacket before the TIE fighter sank into the sand and exploded. Finn sadly thought Poe hadn't survived and left. Alone across the desert under intense sunshine, Finn finally reached a settlement. BB-8 immediately spotted him upon seeing Poe's jacket. The droid rushed to attack him. After learning Poe hadn't survived, BB-8 showed sadness. Finn told BB-8 the truth, that this droid had a map piece to Skywalker. He wanted to find the resistance to help fight the Order. At this time, the First Order's army arrived. Stormtroopers fired and ships began strafing. Rey and Finn ran to an old ship. It hadn't started for years. After several attempts, it flew. Its speed
speed was very fast, allowing them to easily outrun and lose their pursuers. Before they left, a large freighter suddenly intercepted them. They lost control and were pulled aboard, hurriedly hiding. From the freighter's door, Han Solo and Chewbacca appeared. It turned out this was his ship, the Millennium Falcon. It had been stolen and he looking for it. The two looked around the ship and quickly found Rey and Finn. When mentioning Luke Skywalker, Han agreed to take them to find the Resistance. Sometime later, everyone went to Takodana, meeting an old woman named Maz Kanata to find the Resistance. Here, Rey suddenly heard voices in her head and found Luke's old lightsaber. She also saw visions of the past and a future confrontation with Kylo. Maz said it was the Force awakening and told her to find Luke to train her. On the First Order Superweapon Starkiller base, Kylo reported their defeat to the new Supreme Leader Snoke. Snoke immediately deployed the weapon to destroy the Republic capital system. Snoke also mentioned Han Solo's return. Kylo is Han and Leia's son. Even so, Kylo did not care and was determined to complete his mission. Both Snoke and Kylo felt a new Force-sensitive awakening, Rey. A few hours later, the weapon fired. Even more powerful than the Death Star, it destroyed the entire Hosnian Prime system. Immediately, the planets in the Hosnian system were destroyed. Next was the pursuit of Han Solo's group, the sky filled with First Order ships. Stormtroopers landed to surround them. Thinking escape was impossible, suddenly Resistance X-Wings arrived in time, forcing the First Order to retreat. On the other side, sensing Rey through the Force, Kylo came to her location. Rey couldn't resist and was captured. When they all realized it was too late, Finn helplessly witnessed. Then, in the sky, a transport landed. The Resistance commander was Leia. Han Solo and Leia met again after many years. They were saddened that their son had turned to the enemy. Not long after, everyone was taken to the Resistance base on Dekar. Finn and BB-8 met Poe again. It turned out he had survived the crash. On Starkiller base, Kylo used the Force to probe Rey's mind. At first, he easily read her surface thoughts. But when Kylo sought the map information, Rey fought back psychically. She even felt Kylo's fear. Kylo feared never being as strong as Vader. It turned out that from a young age, Kylo idolized Vader and wanted to become like his grandfather. Kylo then reported to Snoke that Rey had strong power, making interrogation impossible, and the droid was with the Resistance. Snoke decided to crush the Resistance base. Snoke also ordered Kylo to bring Rey to him. Meanwhile, Rey unconsciously used the Force, mind-tricking a stormtrooper to release her before Kylo returned. The Resistance new Starkiller base was charging to fire again. With nothing left to lose, they planned to destroy it. Thanks to Finn's knowledge, as a former stormtrooper, they found its weakness. It drew energy from a star and would be vulnerable while charging after its recent shot. The base's shield had an oscillator. If they could sneak in and disable the shield, fighters could approach and bomb that oscillator. After planning, Han's group, including Chewbacca and Finn, jumped to light speed to avoid detection. The base's shield didn't stop physical objects at sublight speeds. Although their landing was rough and crashed in the forest, it was successful. Meanwhile, Resistance commanders saw the shield was still up. Starfighters couldn't attack. Under the oscillator, the group suddenly saw Rey hiding and reunited with her. Going outside, they saw the Resistance fighters being overwhelmed. If they couldn't lower the shield, the plan would fail. Han decided to place explosives on the oscillator's critical supports. Unexpectedly, Kylo was waiting for Han Solo on a bridge. Han tried to appeal to his son's feelings, but Kylo killed him coldly. Leia, light years away, felt this through the Force. Then the charges detonated as Poe destroyed the oscillator's thermal regulator. Kylo continued pursuing Rey and Finn, blocking them. Rey, wielding the lightsaber, fought Kylo but was quickly overpowered. Finn grabbed the lightsaber but was slashed down. At this time, Rey focused, reached out with the Force, and pulled the lightsaber to her. Her powerful Force connection overwhelmed Kylo. She disarmed him and wounded him across the face. Only the cracking ground saving Kylo. Rey and Finn then boarded the Falcon before the entire weapon was destroyed. By then, they had loaded the map into BB-8, and Rey would set out to find Luke. Just days after the battle, because Starkiller Base exploded, Snoke accelerated his plans, sending the First Order fleet to surround the Resistance base on Dekar to destroy them. Resistance transports began evacuating into space. In turn, many were shot down. At this time, the First Order's radar detected a single X-Wing. It was Poe Dameron. He rushed into the First Order dreadnought and successfully destroyed its surface cannons, allowing the last transports to escape. On the base, Finn regained consciousness after his battle with Kylo. He tried to find Rey, but she was gone. At the first Jedi Temple on Ahch-To, Rey found Luke. But Luke hadn't just lost his way. He deliberately isolated himself. Something had happened that made Luke not want to return. Chewbacca and Rey told him Han Solo was gone. They needed him more than ever. Facing that, Luke refused and dismissed them. In the evening, Luke went to the Falcon. Old memories returned. He also met R2-2. Suddenly, R2 projected Leia's old message begging for help. Once again, the fighting spirit returned to him. He decided he would teach Rey. On the other side, the First Order fleet pursued the Resistance. They caught the fleeing fleet. Facing that, protected by a shield on their flagship, the Raddus, they hadn't been destroyed yet. Kylo led the TIE fighter attack. Because he attacked their bridge, Vice Admiral Holdo's ship was critically damaged before she could jump to lightspeed. Later, Kylo had a shot at Leia's bridge, but hesitated. Another TIE fighter fired, blasting the bridge. Leia was blown into space. But, thanks to the Force, she survived and returned safely. The Resistance continued to cluster on the Raddus, not knowing how to escape. Rey, meditating, suddenly felt a Force bond with Kylo.
She impulsively shot at him with her blaster. Kylo felt the sting even though they were light years apart. They could even see each other. Kylo explained why Luke betrayed him. When training young Ben Solo, Luke had a vision of the rising darkness in him. It was so strong Luke momentarily considered killing him. Rey was very disappointed by Luke's action and boarded the Falcon to go meet Snoke, hoping to turn Kylo. On the Raddus, the Resistance was surrounded. Snoke wanted Rey to become his apprentice, but she refused. He immediately used Force Lightning on her, then ordered Kylo to kill her. Suddenly, Kylo turned, using Rey's lightsaber to kill Snoke while he was distracted. The two then fought together against Snoke's Praetorian guards. Though the guards were elite, facing Kylo and Rey, they were all destroyed. Kylo wanted Rey to join him, but again Rey refused. Enraged, they fought over the Skywalker lightsaber, tearing it apart. Meanwhile, creating an escape chance for the Resistance, Vice Admiral Holdo sacrificed herself, ramming the Raddus at light speed into Snoke's flagship, the Supremacy. The Supremacy was cut in half, and that distraction allowed Rey to escape on the Falcon. Now Kylo led the entire First Order fleet to hunt the remnants. The Resistance transports hid on the mineral planet Crate. Even so, the First Order army soon surrounded them. A battle broke out. The Resistance was quickly losing. At this time, Luke appeared, projecting himself across the galaxy. Blaster bolts passed through him harmlessly. Kylo then attacked Luke himself. A battle between the former master and apprentice. Kylo rushed in. Due to projecting himself across such distance, Luke vanished and became one with the Force, his mission complete. Meanwhile, Rey used the Force to clear rubble, creating an escape path for everyone. Not long after, the supreme leader of the First Order, Kylo Ren, destroyed his helmet. He then found a Sith wayfinder that led to the dark planet Exegol, revealing Sidious was still alive. Snoke had been his puppet all along. Sidious promised Kylo he would give him the power to control the galaxy with a massive Sith fleet he had built on the condition that Kylo kill Rey forever. Elsewhere, Rey trained with the Force using Leia's guidance. She quickly learned Sidious had returned when the Republic world Kijimi was destroyed by a Star Destroyer firing planet-killing energy beams similar to the old Death Star. The Resistance quickly gathered forces for one final attack. Then, Rey, following the Wayfinder, met Kylo on Kef Bir to retrieve the other half. The two dueled. Despite trying, Rey was quickly disarmed. At this moment, Leia used all her remaining life force to reach her son. Distracted, Kylo hesitated, and Rey immediately stabbed him. Thinking of Leia and Han Solo, she finally used Force healing on Kylo. Later, Rey left. Suddenly, Kylo saw the memory of his father, Han Solo, who encouraged him. Kylo changed. With the Wayfinder, Rey and the Resistance set out for Exegol and the Sith fleet. Small Resistance fighters engaged hundreds of giant Star Destroyers. Rey alone went to confront Sidious. Sidious revealed he was Rey's grandfather. Her powerful Force connection came from him. Sidious had ordered the murder of Rey's parents when she was young, causing her abandonment on Jakku. Suddenly, Kylo arrived. This time he was on Rey's side to fight Sidious. In the sky, the Resistance suffered heavy losses due to the overwhelming numbers. Suddenly, a call resounded. Thousands of civilian ships from across the galaxy came to help, outnumbering the Sith fleet and balancing the battle. Altogether, they attacked the Sith fleet. Suddenly, Sidious drained the life force of Kylo and Rey to restore his own power. He threw Kylo down and unleashed massive Force lightning, crippling the entire Resistance fleet. The advantage fell to the Sith again. At this time, Rey suddenly heard the voices of all past Jedi. They advised her not to give up and would lend her their strength. Rey stood up and continued fighting. Sidious shot lightning at Rey. She held it back with her lightsabers crossed. Then, channeling the power of all the Jedi, she deflected Sidious's own lightning back at him, disintegrating him. The Resistance ships also restored power and destroyed the Sith Star Destroyers. Rey collapsed, exhausted. Kylo, wounded, crawled over and gave Rey all his life force through a Force heal. Kylo sacrificed his own life to save Rey's, then became one with the Force. The battle with the First Order ended. People across the galaxy were free. The story ends here. If you feel good, please give me a like, a channel subscription. Thank you everyone, and see you again.